Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Malice in the Mitten. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Christine Mulligan. Hey, Christine.
Hey, Trace, how's it going? I feel like we haven't talked in forever. I don't know what anybody's talking about with our days supposedly getting shorter because these weeks have seemed longer and longer and longer.
I know.
So, with that, let's go entertain me, yeah, because I'm ready. I'm ready to hear some stories.
Awesome. Well, I'm ready too. So, back in season 2, episode 3, I told you about the story of Bennie Evangelista. He was an Italian immigrant who met a man named Leon. Now, this is quite a twisted tale of voodoo and an axe murder of his entire family, and Bennie himself lost his head. Well, today, I'm going to dive into Leon Angelini. Now, this is a great show to kick off season 8, and I am placing a trigger warning on today's show related to child murder. I know how you hate that, and animal abuse.
Oh, my goodness, Trace.
It's a double whammy.
Oh, I'm not sure if I like you now because I was super excited for some twisted tales, and now I'm going to be crying. I'm not ready. Okay.
It's brutal.
Let's go.
It's brutal. All right. Today's story was written and researched by Rebecca Hiers. So thank you, Rebecca. So let's get into it. This is season 8, episode 1. Leon Angelini and Bennie Evangelista. More questions than answers. Today, if you drive down St. Aubin Avenue in Detroit, you will find empty lots, cracked sidewalks, some apartment buildings, boarded up stores, and graffiti. A few homes remain, but most have been torn down. 3929 St. Aubin Street is one of these vacant lots. Like many cities, Detroit has undergone many changes over the years. In 1929, the area of 3929 was full of homes, families, corner stores, churches, and was a thriving Italian community. It was full of life, love, and sorcery. To this day, it is believed that St. Aubin Avenue is a cursed street. 3929 St. Aubin Avenue was a neatly kept, green, 2-story home with a front porch and a balcony off the second story. This was the home of the Evangelista family. Bennie, his wife Santina, and their children Angelina, 7 years old, Margaret, age 5, Jeannie, age 4, and Mario, 18 months. In season 2, episode 3, we brought you the story of the Evangelista family murder. At the time of the murder, there were many suspects. One was Umberto Tecchio. Umberto had murdered his brother-in-law 3 months before Bennie's murder. But since his brother-in-law had died in the hospital and Umberto claimed self-defense, he was never charged with killing him and was free at the time the Evangelista family was killed. He was eventually arrested for their murder in 1932, but a fingerprint comparison in 1935 proved his innocence. However, in 1934, Umberto died, so it was a moot point. But let's take a closer look at one of the prime suspects in the murder and the strange connection between the two men. And now that man is Aurelius Leon Angelini, and raise the question if maybe Bennie wasn't as innocent as he appeared on the surface. Now, here's a quick recap. Bennie was born in Italy and moved to Philadelphia to live with his brother in 1904. Then he began to get interested in the occult, and his brother sent him to live in York, Pennsylvania. This is the time we are going to focus on in this episode. In York, he got a job on the railroad and met another immigrant named Aurelius Angelini, or Leon. Leon was about 20 years older than Benny and married, but he was also into mysticism, the occult, and other dark practices. Benny and Leon had come from the same town in Italy. The two dabbled in folk religion, hex magic, and faith healing. They also followed something called theosophy. And this is a combination of philosophy, science, and religion. Powwowing had a large following in the area where they lived. This was good magic. Brought over from Germany, practitioners combined religion with spells to protect from hexes and curses, find missing objects and people, foretell the future, and cure illnesses. Another common practice in the area was that of hexery, or witchcraft, black magic. This practice would take its powers from the devil to cast spells, curses, or hexes on others, quite often for revenge. Some branches believed they could control demons and spirits to do their bidding. Now, the two men would work together, developing a new religion, combining elements of all these practices, which Benny would later take to Detroit and spent many hours together honoring their craft. Then, on May 18th, 1919, Leon lost his mind. But why? What caused him to snap? And did he really do what he was accused of doing? Born in Italy, February 2nd, 1884, Leon and his Swiss wife had immigrated to the United States on May 1, 1912. Living first in New York State, he worked as a lumberman. He then moved to York, Pennsylvania, and obtained a job with Star Bell Retainer Works. He then went to work at the rail yard where he and Benny met. He was a cheerful and considerate husband, according to his wife Frida. He was a hard worker and took pride in his ability to provide. Things were going well for the family until July 19th, 1916. Leon had been traveling in a car when it crashed. Now, seatbelts were not a thing back then, and he was flung from the vehicle, landing on his head. Oh boy, Christine. Oh, we know right where this is going, right?
Brain injury. Penumbra was not saved.
Always a bad stimulus.
There we go.
Yep. Now, his head, leg, right arm, and shoulder were seriously damaged. He would begin to use his left hand from that point forward. Seriously injured, he spent many weeks in the hospital recovering. As often happens with traumatic brain injuries, Leon's personality changed, and we're not surprised. He often would become violent. He had difficulty gaining and keeping a job. He sank into depression. After 13 months of unemployment, he managed to find work as a dishwasher at the Auntie's restaurant. When that job became too much for his arm, they had him peel potatoes. But that bothered him also, so he left that job. The family lived mainly on charity from churches and neighbors, with the children often being underdressed in the cold Pennsylvania winters. Frida did her best to support them, obtaining work in a tobacco stripping factory, but that was difficult. A tobacco stripper is a person that removes the dried leaves from the plants after they have been cured, separating them into different grades. On average, she would make $2 per day, and we know that you love this, Christine. That would equal $37 in today's money, and at that, the amount is still ridiculous.
Yeah, especially for a stripper. You would think that would be a lot more money.
True. In February of 1919, Leon accused Frida of trying to poison him, and he threatened to kill her. She signed papers at that time to have him committed for treatment in the insane asylum. He seemed to be improving, and on May 17th, he was released into his wife's care at her request, with the promise she would take him back to his mother in Italy. His mother, who owned many farms in Italy, had sent money for their passage, and a neighbor, Mrs. Flora, to travel with them. They were slated to leave May 23rd. It was believed, being with his family among familiar people and places, that he would recover his mind. He did not sleep that night and spent it chanting, singing, and hallucinating. For instance, he believed his family did not belong to him. On the morning of May 18th, the day after he returned home, the rest of the family arose and Frida made breakfast. After eating, Leon tried to pick a fight with Frida. As she refused to engage with him, Leon, outraged, hit her in the face. He then took his 6-year-old daughter, Helen, down to the railroad depot with him, where he had worked for a short time with Bennie. He wanted to get a timetable so they would know when to catch the train to leave for Italy. Arriving at the depot, he snatched a hat off a lady's head, put it on, and began to dance and sing. A man witnessing his shenanigans threatened to call the police, and he was asked to leave. So he returned the hat and left. Returning home, Leon, Frida, and the 2 oldest children went to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Falco to have lunch at about 12 p.m. The Falco family was their closest neighbor and helped them out often. Their 3-year-old twin boys were left home, alone, in their room, as they had no clothes to wear. When Leon left, Mr. Falco gave him some eggs. Leon returned home before Frida, and when she finally arrived home at about 2 p.m., he opened the door and came out of the boys' bedroom, and he demanded Frida cook him some eggs.
Why? You just had dinner. But if you want something, I will get it for you and the children.
She then told him to go lay down with the boys while he waited for the eggs. He went back into the bedroom, closing the door behind him, while she cooked the eggs in the kitchen. She heard pounding coming from the room, which was just off the kitchen, and asked him to come out, but he refused. Frightened due to the noises, she told him that their daughter Helen was in the front yard and needed him. Now, this did cause him to leave the bedroom. She did not report seeing any blood on him at that time. Coming into the kitchen, he grabbed a butcher knife, lunged at Frida, and yelled, "This is the way you do it!" Frida fled the house, leaving their children behind. When she reached the road, she fainted. Once she left, Leon returned to the bedroom of his 3-year-old twin boys. What went on then? It's hard to know. It is believed the noises Frida heard were the sounds of Leon beating the boys as they lay, naked and defenseless, in bed. But as the door was closed and she could not see in, There was no way of knowing. But what is known for sure is that the entire room was splattered with blood and fingerprints. The tiny mattress was covered with blood, gore, and body parts. Neighbors alerted to the screams, seeing Frida lying in the road, ran to help. At 2:55 p.m., Mrs. Kirk, another neighbor, called the police. When more neighbors arrived at the house, the doors were locked. As they stood there, wondering what was going on, a semi-naked Leon took the bodies of the two boys to the front yard and started to hack them to pieces with a knife and axe on a makeshift altar that he had made. He was chanting as he did so. He managed to completely destroy one child, stuffing the body pieces in a milk can. When he spotted the neighbors, he asked one, quote, "Do you want some fresh liver?" He asked another, "Do you want some fresh meat?" As he started on his second son, police arrived and arrested him. As the police approached and put the handcuffs on him, he was heard to say, "I did not do it. Someone else did it." Private funeral services were held for the two boys at the office of the undertakers, Fred Groff. The bodies were laid to rest at St. Anthony's Cemetery. Frida and the surviving children went to stay with Mrs. Flora. She had discussed going to Italy to live with her in-laws, but as she was pregnant and due any day, she didn't want to give birth on board a ship. While held in jail to await his trial, Leon refused to keep his clothes on. Any clothes, bedding, or fabric given to him was shredded and pushed out of his cell. Naked, he would pace and mutter, sleeping naked on the floor of his cell each night, all the while saying, "I didn't do it." His preliminary hearing was held on June 21st. After hearing testimony, it was determined to go to court in September. Examined by Dr. Kapp, Dr. Lowell, and Dr. Baer, he was acquitted of murder due to being found insane and recommitted to the Fairview State Asylum for the criminally insane. It was at this point Bennie Evangelista left for Detroit. Leon escaped for the first time on July 16, 1920. He had sent a letter to Frida telling her he would see her shortly, just the week before. While working under guard with other inmates, he made a dash for freedom. Dodging bullets and hiding in the woods, he managed to make his way to a train. He hopped the train and went to find his wife. Frida had moved back into the home where the murders took place by this time, and a guard was put around the neighborhood. Leon was free for a total of 3 weeks. Recaptured after a massive manhunt near his old home, he was returned to the asylum. He would only stay until September 29th, 1923, when he once again managed to escape. And this time, the authorities couldn't find him. Once again, guards were put at the house where Frida and the children lived, but no sign of Leon turned up. Eventually, although many people called in leads and many people were arrested, none turned out to be Leon. And soon, the case went cold. Frida eventually met someone new. Life must go on, even with an insane child-murdering husband roaming around. She lived with a man named Adrian Bartholomew. Now, there is no record of them ever getting married. However, she would later be referred to in newspapers as Mrs. Bartholomew. She and Adrian would have 2 children by 1925. They lived a peaceful life, raising her 2 surviving children and the 2 she had with Adrian. They made friends with their neighbors, the Millers. Knowing the background of Frida, they gave the family a guard dog in May of 1925. The dog was an excellent guard dog, growling if any stranger approached, and was much loved by the family. Then, the dog was poisoned and killed in the middle of June. Somehow, someone had gotten close enough to the dog, got it to trust them enough, so that they were able to feed the dog powdered glass. 1 week later, on June 25th, 1925, the home they lived in exploded, blown up and then catching fire. The home was a total loss. The family managed to escape, and they went to live with the Millers. Once again pregnant, Frida's family was put under protective custody, and the manhunt for Leon resumed. When interviewed later, she was asked if she thought her former husband had done this. Frida's response?
No, I don't think he did it. I've forgotten all about him. I don't want to think about him.
8 months after Benny and his family were slain, detectives on the case took a closer look at the goings-on in York. Now, as we discussed in the Hex Murders, Season 7, Episode 19, spiritualism was on the rise in the Americas. Starting on the East Coast, it slowly wound its way westward. One area it took hold in was York. In 1928, the year before the Evangelista murders, 30-year-old John Blaymeyer had been running on a streak of bad luck. His children had died, his wife had left him, he lost his job, so he consulted a witch who told him about a gentleman by the name of Nelson Riemeyer was to blame for his misfortune. Nelson was a practitioner of white magic. 18-year-old Wilbert Hess and 14-year-old John Curry were also having a streak of bad luck. The 3, taking the word of the witch, beat Nelson to death, then set him on fire in order to break their curse. Soon captured, the trial involving witchcraft, spells, and curses became national news. Word soon reached Detroit. 2 weeks before the Evangelista murders in River Rouge, about 15 minutes from the site of the Evangelista murders, another murder occurred. Newspapers have the last name listed as Podolsky and Chabinsky. It appears the mother had been married multiple times, and that may account for the discrepancy in the names. As with the murders of the Evangelistas, 4 members of the family had been beaten in the head, in this case with a hammer. The mother, Anna, 37, was found in a pool of blood in the woods behind the house. The bodies of her children, Pauline, age 2, Margaret, age 5, and Josephine, age 10, were found beaten in their beds. The children were close in age to the Evangelista children. Anna was close in age to the adults. Both families had their heads battered at night. The children in both cases were in bed. One adult was out of bed. Was there a tie? And if there was it the religious aspect? As Benny had come to York, and there were 2 murders similar in their methods in Detroit, and with a murder in York the year before, police thought it would be worth a second look at this relationship with Leon. They exhumed Benny's body and took his fingerprints. For a short time, there was a belief that the 2 men were one and the same. Workers interviewed at the train depot remembered Benny the Preach, but did not remember Leon. Both men had come from the same town in Italy, as I mentioned earlier in the show. But as Leon was known to be in custody when the Evangelista murders occurred, this was quickly ruled out. They couldn't be the same person, as much as the cops wanted them to be, as Leon was in the asylum and had been seen there when Bennie was killed in 1929. And how would Bennie have cut off his own head and then hid the murder weapon? However, when they exhumed his body, his fingerprints were found to match bloody prints found at the scene of the murder of Leon's sons. Leon had said when arrested that he did not kill his boys. In Leon's lucid moments at the asylum, he would reiterate this over and over again. Because of his time spent at the asylum and his actions after his release, nobody believed him. Could he have come home early from his lunch and found Bennie in the bedroom with his boys? Could that be the reason for the bedroom door being closed when Frida came home? Did what he find in that room cause him to snap and then later hack the boys to pieces? How did the bloody fingerprints of Bennie come to be in the Angelini crime scene? He doesn't show up in any reports as being at their home that day. Frida and Leon were gone from 12 to 2-ish, plenty of time for someone to enter the home and attack the two boys. Who locked the doors on the Angelini home? Hearing Frida scream, did Bennie leave the bedroom and lock the front doors, knowing help would soon arrive? And knowing if they were locked, he would have a little extra time to escape. Was Leon the fall guy for a twisted ritual of Bennie's? After the house fire, which police believed was caused by Leon, no other word of him was ever mentioned. In a weird afternote, Frida died on May 2nd, 1957. Her obituary states that her husband Aurelius died in 1918. It says nothing of his time in the asylum. It does not mention Adrian, her second husband, or the twins at all. She would have more children after Leon was committed in 1919, Caesar and Peter in 1924, Ida in 1925, and Ronaldo in 1930, and Bernice in 1932. According to Find a Grave, their last names are all still listed as Angelini, not Bartolomei. Even the children she had with Adrian. Her death certificate lists her as a widow with the last name Angelini. Once again, no trace of Adrian. However, the obituary for Caesar lists his parents as Adrian and Frida Bartholomew. Ronaldo says his parents were Adriano Angelini and Frida Sturman Angelini. So why the discrepancies in the names? Did Leon reinvent himself as her second husband in order to avoid authorities? Could he have been hiding under their noses the entire time? Peter's birth date was March 22nd, 1924, with his parents listed as Adrian Bartolomeo and Frida Sturman Angelini. Sturman was her maiden name. Caesar's date of birth was July 7th, 1924. His headstone reads 1924, but the family tree on Family Search states 1927 for the birth year. So which one is correct? Now back to Bennie. Bennie was killed by a left-handed killer. Leon was left-handed. Did Leon escape and spend 6 years hiding and plotting his revenge? Did he kill the family in River Rouge to throw the authorities off his trail? Are the two family murders even connected? There was one fingerprint left at the Evangelista's murder site. However, Leon had never been fingerprinted, so there's no way to match him to that crime scene. 2 husbands of Anna's went missing at the time of the murder, and there's no record of either one showing up later or being charged with the crime. Did one of the husbands commit the murder, or did Leon kill them also, hide the bodies, and never get caught? In 1937, a homeless man's body was found on the train tracks in Boston. This, at the time, was believed to be Leon, but Frida was unavailable to travel to Boston to give a positive identification. Authorities, however, believed it to be him and officially quit looking for him. According to Family Search on the Angelina family tree, but not found elsewhere, but with links to records, Leon moved back to Italy, probably under an assumed name, where he married a woman named Giovanna on March 30th, 1930. The two would have a daughter, Cesarina, in 1939. She would die the same day. On November 12, 1941, he was hit by a train and killed while walking on the tracks and is buried somewhere in Italy. Did Frida give him the money his mother had sent? And did he use it to go back to Italy? Did he use the cover of the war ravaging that part of the world to hide? What is your theory? Did Benny murder Leon's sons in a twisted religious ritual that let him take the fall? Are any of the murders even connected? Did Frida know more about her husband's second escape than she let on? Or was Benny killed as an act of revenge for the death of Leon's sons? Did Leon read about his train death in 1937 and, overcome with grief of his daughter's death, have that in mind when walking the tracks in 1941? Well, as the title states, more questions than answers. This story is nuts.
This story is all over the place. I like how the threads weave everything together, but it's very loose. And I also love how it makes you realize back in the day when we didn't have cameras everywhere, videos everywhere, everyone's DNA in some ancestry heritage website somewhere, and fingerprints the plenty. You know, like as a kid in the 80s, we all got fingerprinted and pictures under the guise that our parents could find us if we ever went missing. But I really think that was just cataloging for the stock of Americans. But whatever.
Right.
I'm a little... So back in the day, none of that existed, and you could totally just assume a new identity.
Right.
That's a crazy thought.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm kind of stuck with about hearing all of this. Thankfully, the murder of the children and the dog kind of like got buried in all of the other stuff you were talking about. So I didn't cry. I didn't shed a tear. So it wasn't that gruesome. So thank you for that. Good. Anyway.
Thank you, Becky.
It is kind of crazy to think. You could have just totally assumed a new life.
Right.
Bonkers.
Totally bonkers. When Rebecca told me she was going to do this story, I'm like, oh my God, that's great, because I didn't really dive that deep into Leon at all. I mean, we talked about him, but she really dug real deep. And I'm like, she's like, this is crazy. It's twisting. I don't know. Who did it? I'm like, I don't know either who did it. It's nuts. It's totally nuts. I loved it.
And if he was, I mean, we've learned about multiple personalities a lot more nowadays, where maybe it was all the same dude the whole time. I mean, and even if you say he was in the asylum or in jail, how are you going to tell me you know that for sure? This guy escaped how many times?
Twice. Twice.
Maybe he just went on a weekend rant and came back. Who knows?
It's a freaking mystery.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I love these old stories. They're absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. So please leave us your thoughts and comments and any other theory we may have missed. If you were intrigued by the story and would like to hear more, please hit the like, subscribe, and share button on YouTube and rate us on other platforms you listen to us on. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend with us, so thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So have a great week, everyone. And we will see you all back on Wednesday for Round Robin.
Bye.
Bye.